From Tragedy to Activism, the National Movement Inspired by Breonna Taylor. By Darius Spearman, African Elements. Support African Elements at patreon.com/AfricanElements and hear recent news in a single playlist. Additionally, you can get early access to ad-free video content. Breonna Taylor's impact on social justice advocacy. Breonna Taylor's story became a pivotal moment for social justice in America. However, her mother, Tamika Palmer, turned profound grief into a formidable force for change. Palmer's advocacy highlights the crucial need for social justice advocacy, echoing through communities and sparking nationwide movements. The catalyst for change. The outcry following Breonna's death lit a fire under a global call to action. It unified diverse groups in a stand against systemic injustices. Consequently, this surge of solidarity underlined the widespread demand for an end to racial inequities in policing and the justice system. Breonna's case became a symbol for the broader struggle, urging society to reflect, reconsider, and reform. The voice of a grieving mother. Tamika Palmer's transformation into a key figure in the movement for justice showcases the enduring strength of maternal love. Palmer's statement, "It's about making sure this doesn't happen to anyone else," highlights her resolve and the broader objectives of her advocacy. News One. Her efforts remind us that behind the statistics and headlines are real families enduring unimaginable loss. Breonna Taylor's legacy lives on as a catalyst for change, inspiring ongoing efforts to build a just and equitable society. Accordingly, through persistent activism, legislative advocacy, and collective action, the campaign for justice in Breonna's name moves forward. Moreover, it embodies the power of community in challenging and changing systemic inequalities. The legal battle and public response. The ACLU of Kentucky pointed out the clash between no-knock warrants and the Castle Doctrine. This legal inconsistency underlines the broader fight for racial justice. Therefore, Breonna's law, inspired by Taylor, symbolizes hope for saving lives through legislation. Racial disparities in policing and the war on drugs. The enforcement of no-knock warrants sheds light on the racial disparities entrenched within the criminal justice system. Originating from the Nixon-era war on drugs, these policies disproportionately target Black and brown communities, exacerbating systemic racism. A policy rooted in racial bias. The war on drugs, while declared as a fight against narcotics, has been criticized for its uneven impact on communities of color. No-knock warrants, a tool in this war, often lead to violent encounters and breaches of personal safety, predominantly affecting minorities. Significantly, this approach has not only failed to address the root causes of drug abuse, but has also sown distrust between law enforcement and the communities they serve. The consequences of unequal enforcement. A disturbing trend revealed by investigative reports shows that no-knock warrants are more likely to be issued against Black suspects. As a result, this pattern underscores the necessity of confronting and rectifying racial biases within law enforcement practices. A Washington Post analysis revealed a racial pattern in the approval of no-knock warrants, with a majority targeting Black suspects, highlighting the urgent need for reform and accountability in policing tactics. The Washington Post. These disparities underline the critical need for comprehensive police reform. Additionally, addressing the systemic issues that allow racial biases to influence policing, we can take a significant step towards justice and equality. The legacy of Breonna Taylor, and the countless others impacted by similar policies, demands a reevaluation of law enforcement strategies to ensure they serve all communities fairly and justly. Memorializing Breonna Taylor and continuing activism. Breonna Taylor's memory lives on through acts of remembrance and ongoing activism. Her family, alongside community leaders and activists, honors her legacy while pushing for systemic change. Remembering Breonna. On the anniversary of Breonna's death, her family leads the community in remembrance activities, such as balloon releases. Importantly, these moments of reflection not only memorialize Breonna but also reinforce the community's resolve to seek justice and reform. Breonna Taylor's family honored her memory by releasing balloons on the anniversary of her death, symbolizing their enduring love and the ongoing fight for justice. WZZM 13. The power of community activism. Activists and community leaders gather to discuss police reform and honor Taylor's memory, turning grief into action. These gatherings serve not only as a tribute to Breonna but also as a platform for dialogue and action against the systemic issues plaguing our society. Moreover, the collective energy of these events underscores the community's commitment to enduring change and accountability. Breonna Taylor's legacy is a beacon for those fighting for a fairer world. Through continued activism and remembrance, her spirit inspires efforts to transform the justice system into one that truly serves and protects all citizens equitably. The national movement for police reform. Breonna Taylor's story has galvanized a national movement demanding comprehensive police reform. This push for change seeks not only to honor her memory but to prevent future tragedies through substantive legislative action and policy shifts. Legislative efforts and advocacy. In the wake of Taylor's death, lawmakers and activists have rallied to introduce and support legislation aimed at curbing police practices that disproportionately harm communities of color. The bill named for Amir Locke, another victim of a no-knock warrant, exemplifies these efforts. Significantly, it proposes restrictions on all search warrants, emphasizing the need for accountability and transparency in law enforcement operations. The bill aims to address the execution of all search warrants, not just no-knock warrants, and includes comprehensive reforms to increase police accountability. NWLNOKNOX.org. Mobilizing communities for change. In summary, the movement for police reform is characterized by its grassroots origins and national reach. Communities across the country have mobilized, from small towns to major cities, advocating for justice, equity, and the protection of civil liberties. Consequently, this widespread mobilization reflects a collective realization of the need for systemic change to ensure the safety and dignity of all citizens, particularly those from marginalized communities. The national movement for police reform, inspired in part by the tragic loss of Breonna Taylor, represents a pivotal moment in the ongoing struggle for justice and equality. Thus, by continuing to advocate for meaningful reforms, activists, legislators, and concerned citizens are laying the groundwork for a more just and equitable future. About the author. Darius Spearman is a professor of Black Studies at San Diego City College, where he has been pursuing his love of teaching since 2007. He is the author of several books, including Between the Color Lines, A History of African Americans on the California Frontier through 1890. You can visit Darius online at africanelements.org.